Hello and welcome to my easy to understand guide to this GQ magazine front cover in specific relation to media language and representation. This video is going to be particularly relevant for you if you study the Eduqas GCSE Media Studies specification as it appears on the specification from 2024 onwards. The Masthead GQ is an abbreviation that a lot of people may not know what it means, and so it's kind of become a recognisable brand even though many readers might not actually know the acronym. Underneath the magazine's masthead you can see it actually says Gentleman's Quarterly, which makes this magazine feel as though perhaps it's aimed at a slightly more wealthy or educated audience. The fact that the masthead is partially obscured by the cover image and the cover star is very conventional actually of magazines. A lot of magazines do this, and it's generally because the magazine brand is so iconic, it's recognisable even when it's partially covered up, and it represents the cover star as being the most important thing because it is often them that sells the magazine. The sans serif font adds to this feeling of the magazine being quite powerful, bold and masculine. Raheem Sterling as a choice of cover star, obviously very famous footballer, has been involved in several kind of World Cups, Euros, and is very recognisable to an audience who enjoys football. This potentially helps to target a mostly male audience, and the fact that he's topless may engage male audiences who are gay, so perhaps suggesting that this magazine has both a straight and gay male audience. Of course, topless photos on male magazines, they help to sell the magazine. Sex sells. So having him kind of slightly oiled up and topless on the front helps to sell that image and sell the magazine. And of course, the kind of highlighting of his kind of six-pack and his muscles really reflects this popularity of a very muscular body for men in the media, the way men are typically represented in lifestyle and health magazines like GQ is very overly muscular, and that's kind of relating to this increasing popularity of spornosexuality, which is nothing to do with sexuality. What it basically means is this kind of increasing obsession with being very, very muscular and built, going to the gym a lot, etc. And that's an increasing pressure that is put on men in the media. He's wearing quite a lot of gold jewellery, which signifies his wealth and success. His body language on this front cover is very powerful and dominant. His legs are spread wide, far apart. He's got his arms down in quite a kind of cool, calm, collected pose. And his head is kind of tilted up as though he's quite defiant and almost challenging the audience. And so it's creating a very dominant, very powerful, masculine image for him. The leather trousers. Leather is known as being something perhaps quite rebellious, quite aggressive material. Often we think of it in terms of like bikers, but it's also quite a sexy material as well, and being black leather adds to this feeling of him being quite powerful and sexy. There's some very kind of religious imagery going on this front cover. So you've obviously got the wings kind of coming out the back of him, black wings no less, so making him seem again very powerful and almost holy in his representation. And the use of that word guardian angel as the kind of main cover line on the front emphasises and anchors that representation of him being a kind of almighty power and being somebody that we should look up to and worship and respect. And that's emphasised by some of his religious imagery on his tattoos as well. So for example, his cross, etc. So again, making him seem as though he is quite moral, but also incredibly powerful and holy. The cover line underneath that talks about Raheem Sterling saving football. So again, kind of representing him as a saviour, the protagonist, the hero. So adding this kind of sense of narrative to the front cover where he is going to save football. And so making him seem like a really good or great guy. In the media, it's often fairly typical to represent black men in positions of being quite aggressive and dominant, although it's often in a much more negative fashion, whereas the fact that Raheem Sterling is shown in a very positive fashion as being a kind of angel and a saviour, it perhaps challenges some of the more typical representations we see in the media often of particularly of young black men. And this may be reflective of the more modern context, the fact that it's targeting a reasonably diverse, contemporary male audience, and obviously reflects the context of Raheem Sterling's performance within football in the last couple of years. The colour palette on the magazine is quite simple, which is very conventional. Tends to be 3 colours on a magazine. So black, white and gold, very powerful, very masculine colour palette. But again, it adds this sense of kind of wealth and branding and success to the magazine. The main cover line is in a kind of serif font where the wording seems quite fancy. And so that makes him seem quite sophisticated and dramatic and adds to this sense of his kind of unusual holiness. There's obviously a lot of kind of lifestyle fashion fashion and style type choices on this front cover. However, there's also some world news that's more political. So for example, on the left-hand side of the magazine, they've got an article about a dictatorship. And so you're talking about some world news, perhaps suggests that readers of this magazine are slightly more educated, that they want to have a slightly more political or rounded view of the world that isn't just about appearances. There's the use of direct address here where they use the word you've, and so it makes us feel involved as a reader. And there's the enigma of this phrase as well, that as though we've never heard of this particular dictatorship. So it makes us want to read the magazine to find out which country or culture or society they're referring to. The cover line about Machine Gun Kelly makes it feel very hedonistic and exciting. 74 minutes in the insane, wild, totally nuts life of Machine Gun Kelly. It makes it feel as though he is out partying, having fun, and doing the most exciting things. And that's going to be very appealing for a lot of male readers who perhaps might aspire to have that kind of hedonistic lifestyle. On the top right-hand corner, it talks about the picture exclusives inside the magazine. That word exclusives, along with the exclamation mark, makes it feel very dramatic and exciting. It gives the magazine a unique selling point that forces readers to buy this magazine rather than others in order to get this content. The idea that sex is very sellable is really added to by this cover line that says all the sizzle from the GQ heroes, suggests that there's going to be some more sexualised content inside the magazine. The description of Westminster becoming a living nightmare is quite hyperbolic, it's quite emotive language, and again that makes it feel very dramatic and exciting. The reference to Andy Burnham's master plan represents men as being quite clever, and this is a fairly typical representation of men in the media. At the very top of the magazine, there are some kind of cover lines that run across the top here. How to wear a broken suit and why it's finally okay to own a belt bag. It feels quite instructive, as though the magazine is giving you permission to do these things, and as though it's a kind of teaching type figure, a parental figure, guiding us in what is okay and what is not. So kind of really connoting that this magazine is there to teach us what the right things to do are, and as though there is a right way to look or style yourself. So the focus is very much on appearances here. So that was my easy to understand guide to the GQ magazine front cover. Don't forget to check out my channel for lots of other videos that could be relevant to you. And if there are any videos you would like that I don't already have, just leave a little comment below and I'll see what I can do.